I'm hoping somebody knows something.
Just want closure for myself and for my family.
We believe that there is more than one person that knows.
Some murders go unsolved. Time passes. But families never forget. And cold case investigators never give up. Tonight, News Center 7 presents Miami Valley Murder Mysteries.
Good evening, I'm James Brown.
I'm Cheryl McHenry. We're investigating 4 cold cases of murder that happened right here in our community.
And you won't believe the twists and turns in this first story. Becky Grimes looks at 2 horrific crimes mysteriously linked a long time ago.
It just isn't natural for parents to outlive their children. But for Dwayne and Betty Dirth, they've already outlived their youngest child by 41 years.
It's something you just never get over.
Yeah, every day we think about her.
It's just sadness, all the years we've missed.
Years they would have watched their only daughter grow from a girl into a woman. At 13, she already stood out in a crowd. Linda was simply
Beautiful. And when I took her any place, everyone would stop and say, "Who does she look like? Because she's so pretty."
You find out who Linda was by looking through the pages of her mother's scrapbook.
She loved animals.
The 7th grade at Northmont Junior High.
Here's some of her homework. She said she was proud to be an American.
Sunday school, Girl Scouts,
It's her Girl Scout badges.
and family.
Was she Daddy's little girl?
Oh, yes. I thought
Yes.
she would.
Yeah.
Anything she ever wanted, I'd always,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Life was mostly good at the Dirth home on Diamond Mill Road until January 25th, 1973. If only school hadn't closed that day, then Linda and her brother Robert would not have been home.
I was at work and my son called me. He says, "Dad, get home. Something happened to Linda."
Betty was at work too.
I'm just going to pieces.
Robert left the house for 2 hours that morning. When he returned,
And he seen the door was open that went into the house, and he knew it shouldn't have been. And he walked in and hollered her name, and he still says to this day that she tried to answer. He heard a noise come from her.
Linda had been raped and shot in the head.
It's like somebody was watching the house.
Soon after, the Dirths heard something they never expected. Their daughter's murder was connected to one here in Harrison Township, the murder of a young mother and her 2 small children.
Relatives remember 6-year-old Tracy Buck, a 1st grader, as a sweet child. Brother Scott, 5, was a kindergartner, full of energy. 26-year-old Gloria loved being a mom. She had met her husband Jack on a blind date. It appears January 13th, 1973 began like any other day.
As we look at the crime scene, it looked like, they may have been, having breakfast in the morning.
While Jack Buck was on a hunting trip, someone murdered his family.
It was very violent. Definitely a scary person who would do something like this.
Death certificates show Tracy and Scott died from stab wounds to the throat. Gloria was beaten, stabbed, and shot in the head with one of her husband's guns. Within days, a 17-year-old babysitter who lived on the next block was arrested for the Buck murders. Detectives said Patty Brown knew too much, but the teen was eventually cleared when firearm cartridge cases from the Buck and Dirth crime scenes were compared.
They were a match. That the guns used in both crimes appear to be the same gun.
And they said it was a Ruger 22, that he got it down at the Buck's house.
And that's not the only link. Both families posted ads in the Trading Post. The Bucks were selling a TV, the Dirths a car. Did the killer call to get an address? Dwayne Dirth believes that's how he may have found Linda.
They probably called and she was home, "Oh, Mom and Dad ain't home."
Unanswered questions still keep the Dirths up at night. Along with veteran law enforcement officers like former Montgomery County Sheriff Dave Vore, who raised money to pay for the headstone on the Buck family graves.
Therefore, but the grace of God, there go I, right? So everybody wants to solve this, get this kind of person off the street, because a person who can do that can do anything, and it's a high priority whenever you have children involved.
New technology did not identify a killer when evidence was set for DNA testing. Still, the Buckdirth cases are open investigations.
41 years now that nobody has had to answer for these crimes. We're hoping that somebody sees this, and that if they do have information about these cases, that they'll come forward.
I feel like if we could find out who did this, we could get a little bit of closure, but we just relive that day over and over when it happened and wonder why.
Was it a stranger who killed their daughter, or someone they know, even trusted?
I'm hoping somebody knows something and that they'll come forward with it, because we need it. And I think Linda needs closure too.
Tonight, the Dirths are offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to a conviction in their daughter's death. Please call Detective Brad Daugherty at 937-225-4072.
Two family men making a living selling cars, gunned down at their desks.
You can't do something like that and no one talk about it.
This Dayton woman is hoping someone knows something about the killing of her dad. The car dealership murders in 2 minutes. They worked together and died together. Two men gunned down at a Dayton car dealership 20 years ago. The investigation stalled shortly after the murders. But now, as detectives reopen the case, there's new information that a mystery woman could help solve the crime.
These are both two good men.
Arthur Works and Raymond Ogle
didn't lead the life that people would believe would have caused them their death.
Arthur Works was a 60-year-old father of 6.
To me, he couldn't have had no enemies.
Raymond Ogle was 44, adored by his only child.
He was a father to many of my friends.
They worked at JR Motor Sales, a used car dealership owned by the late Bob Ross that stood here on West 3rd Street in Dayton. Raymond Ogle was the manager, Arthur Works a salesman. On a Monday evening, May 16, 1994, a gunman entered the business and killed them both. Police were called just after 8, about half an hour after the men were last seen alive. A distraught Bob Ross paced the parking lot that night. He'd lost more than 2 employees. Ogle was his brother-in-law, Works his longtime friend. Cold case detective Patty Tackett says the men were shot dead sitting at their desks.
Somebody went in and did this as a hit.
Works was found inside an inner office. Police say he may have tried to run. Ogle was found under a desk facing the door. It's possible he saw his killer and tried to call for help.
Were they trying to get to the phone? We've got the phone was off the hook, and this is how they found it.
Arthur Works was the third of 11 children. He moved to Dayton from Alabama in 1963. His life revolved around his family and his church, where he served as a deacon. And his brother Tommy says Art loved selling cars.
I enjoyed that. You try to sell me a car, so man, I don't buy Chevys, I buy Fords.
Tommy and his wife Miriam have no idea why anyone would want to kill Art.
Your mind always wonder, what happened, what went wrong.
Investigators think something did go wrong, that the deadly bullets were not intended for Art Works, but for Raymond Ogle.
Ray was usually the one that stayed later, and everybody else was gone. And so we're assuming that that's what they thought, is that Ray would be there by himself.
Raymond Ogle grew up in a military family and followed his dad into the Marines. After a tour in Vietnam, he came home to Richmond, Indiana, and married Carmen.
He was a lot of fun. He was a caring person.
Raymond became a Richmond police officer and doted on the couple's daughter, Talia.
He pretty much groomed me to play softball because that was his thing.
Power hitting made him a key player on the FOP championship softball team.
So this is little you.
That was me.
Talia was the team's mascot, and pictured right next to her dad is Mike Walmsley.
Me and Raymond become partners and rode together for 4 or 5 years and become very close friends.
Raymond eventually left the police force to manage JR Motors in Dayton. By then, he and Carmen had divorced, but he visited her and Talia on weekends. His murder was a terrible blow.
Just the shock of it. Neither one of us slept for days.
The women don't know who would have wanted Raymond Ogle dead or why, but his former partner believes he does know, and 20 years later, he came forward to talk to us.
I raced horses at Lebanon, and he would come down there when I was racing.
He remembers Raymond bringing a woman to the track in the weeks before he died.
I'm sure he introduced her, but I don't know who she was.
Not long after that, he heard Raymond had been physically assaulted, which was alarming given Raymond's size and athleticism.
He said it had been over a female and just a little squabble at a club, no big deal. Then it was like 10 days later he was killed.
He believes the woman Raymond brought to the racetrack might be the link to his killer.
Apparently she was also seeing a guy in the Dayton area that was probably one of the major drug dealers. Raymond didn't tell me that, but some other people did, that's why he had been beaten up.
Walmsley says he relayed his suspicions to Dayton officers, but Tackett says this is new information to her.
Who was this woman that he was having this relationship? Are we looking at that? Yes.
The mystery woman is not suspected of doing anything wrong. Raymond Ogle's family now believes she or someone who knows her could give them the answers they've waited for all these years.
My hope is that whoever it is will just be accountable for their own actions and realize that there's a family out there who lost someone.
Mike Walmsley lost someone too, but he no longer worries there's a killer on the loose.
Well, you think they're either dead or in prison themselves.
That was their path. They were going to be one or the other.
He taught me everything.
If only those hurting could know for sure.
Dayton Police Detective Patricia Tackett wants to hear from you. If you know anything about the murders of Arthur Works and Ray Ogle, give her a call at 937-333-7109.
Down on their luck in battling drug and alcohol addiction, 9 women wound up dead in Clark County.
They were all strangled. Their bodies were dumped.
Did they encounter a serial killer? The mysteries continue in 2 minutes. A murder spree spanning possibly 3 decades in Clark County could be the work of a serial killer.
Our John Paul shows us what connects these murders and how they could finally be solved.
I knew it was her.
But being her sister, you loved her unconditionally?
Yeah.
July 12, 2007. That's not a day Amanda Roth can easily forget. That's the day her older sister, Buffy Jo Freeman, was found dead in Snyder Park in Springfield.
I dream about my sister, how she was murdered, what could have possibly happened.
7 years later, Springfield police want to know what happened too. Here's what they do know. Freeman works as a prostitute, and she's last seen alive on the streets of Springfield getting into a car on July 11th. The next day, while on routine patrol in Snyder Park, an officer runs over her body. The coroner's report reveals Freeman died of blunt force trauma before being hit by the police cruiser.
Always thought that something would happen, and it did.
Detectives would soon realize a disturbing 2-year trend, grabbing headlines, starting with Chikara Walker a year before, almost to the day. She's found beaten and near death in Davie Moore Park. She never regains consciousness and dies 10 months later. It happened again in April 2008. Kids find the body of Angela Kilgore behind a home on Grant Street. Then in June, Angela Hanaway is discovered in the Mad River. She too suffers a violent death. 4 young women, all known prostitutes, all murdered.
But the question is, are there any more? Well, we did some digging and were surprised by what we found. Take a look at this. Another 5 women, for a total of 9, all killed in Clark County. All of these somewhat similar. And that has the sheriff asking if this is the work of a serial killer.
It might be connected.
Sheriff Gene Kelly spent decades combing through these files.
These are my personal handwritten notes.
And always comes back to the same one.
It was Memorial Day weekend of 1997. It rained and rained and rained, and it came down in buckets.
Mary Van Keulen, a 26-year-old prostitute found along the railroad tracks on East Possum Road.
She just saw this body in the weeds alongside the road.
Roberta Ober's daughter, Angela, found the body.
She was thinking it was a person that needed help, and so she was going to help them. And of course, the first thing she felt like she should roll this person over so they could breathe better, but when she touched the person, she realized they were dead.
These are crime scene photos from that rainy day. Mary Van Keulen, beaten, strangled, and left for dead.
You see the railroad tracks ahead.
Sheriff Kelly still drives by these tracks and wonders what secrets they hold, angry that a young woman died here on the side of the road.
He discarded her as if she were just a used piece of garbage.
He believes this homicide could possibly be connected to the 4 that happened nearly a decade later in Springfield. And if it's the work of a serial killer, he could have started killing in 1981. On August 21st, Robin Hartman was found dead. A month later, Mary Harris. Then a mysterious 15-year gap, possibly before striking again in 1996. That's when Angela Hall, just 26 years old, turned up dead. A short time after that, in August, Thelma Gabbert would die. Then in 97, Mary Van Keulen would be next. 9 similar murders, 9 similar crime scenes.
You have to think that they might be connected.
But what could explain those long gaps between murders? The sheriff has a number of theories.
They either got caught doing something, went to prison, they were killed, or they moved to another location.
The secrets that Mary Van Keulen took to her grave could be brought to light with technology. The sheriff recently resubmitted all of the evidence to the state crime lab. If they can get a DNA match, it may solve more than one crime.
And we're hoping that through one piece of evidence, a resubmission, that we can get that final piece of evidence that'll lead us to the suspect that might solve this case and several others.
I haven't had any closure, and I'm still having dreams and stuff, so it's very important.
And hopefully bring that closure to loved ones like Amanda. She warned her sister about the life she led and what could happen on the streets. None of that matters anymore. Only justice is on her mind.
No matter what she done, Jesus always forgives people, and she didn't deserve to die.
If you have any information about the murders of these women in Clark County, call Sheriff Gene Kelly at 937-521-2063.
The murder of a college co-ed on the grounds of a local museum.
She looked at the suspect in his eyes as he was killing her. She knew she was going to die.
What detectives need to finally put Paula Payne's killer behind bars. Everybody liked her. She didn't have a mean bone in her body, but still, somebody murdered 20-year-old Paula Payne. 37 years later, her killer still walks the streets and lives less than 10 miles from where I'm standing. Investigators don't have enough evidence to arrest him, but they hope this story changes that.
Paula Jean Payne loved nature, especially birds. She graduated valedictorian from Dayton's Colonel White High School in 1975. And in the spring of 1977, Paula had just finished her sophomore year at Earlham College in Richmond and took a summer job teaching children at the Dayton Museum of Natural History.
She was a very, very good person. Came from a good family. And
Tom Hissong was Paula's boss at the museum. He remembers August 9th, 1977, like it was yesterday. That morning, Paula's alarm clock was set for 6:40. She left her Dayton home here on Manhattan Avenue shortly after 7 a.m., heading for the museum about a mile away. Her walk took her through Triangle Park, then up a trail in the woods toward the museum.
Everybody had shown up except for Paula.
So the museum called Paula's house.
I actually was the one that got a phone call. So it was early in the morning.
Paula's sister and father jumped in the car and started searching. Tom and other museum workers started down the trail.
Came out into an opening and there she was. And that mental image will never be erased from my mind. I was absolutely, totally devastated.
Paula was naked with something tied around her neck.
I was very much, I had my hands in my face in my hands crying, and I was just screaming and sobbing.
The killer used Paula's shirt to strangle her.
Why is she a victim? Who was her enemy? She didn't have any.
Detective Patricia Tackett works on Dayton's unsolved cold case murders.
She looked at the suspect in his eyes as he was killing her. She knew she was going to die.
Early on, investigators questioned several possible suspects.
For a variety of reasons, a suspect did, after a little bit of time, did come in that was fitting to be a good suspect in regards to this investigation.
Paula's sister told us the suspect went to middle and high school with Paula. And talking with Abigail via Skype, she has her own theory about the killer.
He wanted a relationship with her, and she only wanted to be friends.
Abigail said the suspect lived in their neighborhood. She told me the night before the murders, the two sisters were hanging out together. The phone rang, Paula picked it up, and it was the suspect. The two talked for a short time, but then Paula said she had to go because she was getting up early the next morning to come here and work at the museum. Abigail believes that suspect knew exactly what he was doing. He was planning her murder, and he waited in these woods while she walked up the trail that morning. Evidence on Paula's body showed the attack was sexual in nature.
Absolutely barbaric.
Weeks turned into months and no arrest. Eventually, the case wound up in an evidence box. Then in 2008, somebody called Detective Tackett about this case, and she reopened it.
Flashback to 1977.
Channel 7 aired it. I got lots of calls.
It was the last time anyone saw her alive.
The public's information helped Tackett figure out that after the murder, this suspect told a few of his closest friends he killed Paula.
And you have this family secret, or you have this buddy pact that you kind of do the spitting, and everybody agrees that we're going to all keep this to ourselves. Is that okay to do? No, it's not okay to do.
Tackett interviewed those friends, but said that pact still holds today.
I absolutely believe that they are just as responsible. You know what? They might not have been there when it happened, but they know of it, and that they know somebody. Do they still call this person a friend? Is this a person that you would call a friend that would take somebody's life?
So as part of our own investigation, we discovered his identity and called him at work.
This is James Brown from Channel 7. How are you?
He asked us to call back 5 minutes later on his cell phone, and when we did, all we got was his voicemail. A few hours later, his attorney called.
This person doesn't have any empathy. How can they love their wife and show love to their children and have this in the back of have this as a stain on their soul? I don't get it.
Today, Detective Tackett said this suspect has a wife, children, and is seen as an all-around nice guy, but he has a haunting secret.
For you to just live every day like it didn't happen, or, do you have demons? Do you need to get rid of those demons?
This individual is not judged in this life. They will be judged in the next life.
Investigators want to ease the pain for everyone involved in this case.
You need to put yourself at rest, you need to put Paula at peace, and you need to put her family at peace.
If you know anything about the murder of Paula Payne, Dayton Police Detective Patricia Tackett wants to hear from you. You can call her at 937-333-7109.
Talk to us right now on Facebook and Twitter. Join the conversation at #MVMurder and see more pictures and video on WHIO.com. Click on Miami Valley Murder Mysteries.
If you can shed any light on these cold cases, please make that call.
And thanks for joining us. Good night.